evening and welcome to the launch of the Blue Water Sailing Webinars 2021 edition, the digital meeting place for blue water sailing enthusiasts. We're obviously coming to you live from the Cannes Yachting Festival. As you can hear, the energy here is absolutely amazing. We're going to keep that energy going for you for the next hour or so as we host this show. We are coming to you on board the beautiful Outremer 5X. So throughout tonight's show, we're going to be presenting three of the people who will be participating in the webinars this year. We're going to kick it off with Pete Goss on the 23rd of September with Dare to Dream. And down in the cockpit, we also have Nikki and LoIc who will be sharing insights into the details of their webinars. Stay tuned, we have a very big announcement coming up at the end of the show. We're going to be announcing the winner of our very special contest, and we're also going to be giving you even more details about another wonderful event coming up later this year. So right now I'm going to welcome on board Xavier Desmarest. He is the co-founder of Grand Large Yachting. Welcome on board.
Hello.
Now, you actually have a very interesting story as to how you came to create the company Grand Large Yachting, and it began with your dream to take your family on a sailing trip around the world. Can you tell me about that?
Yes, we were with Stéphane Constance. We were at engineering school together, and a few years after we were working in the same consulting company, and we were thinking about going sailing around the world with our family, and we are looking for a boat, and we have not found the boat which was corresponding to our expectation. So at one point, a bit disappointed, we have started designing our boat, and so that's how Allure Yachting has started in 2003 in Cherbourg, and so we have created this first boat, and that was the beginning of our adventure.
Wonderful. So building boats is obviously in the company's DNA.
Yes, of course. And over the time, we have discovered that what was for us at that time the perfect boat for that type of trip. In fact, you have different way of doing it. So over the time, we have gathered different brands, different type of boats. So now we have catamarans, we have monohulls, we have GRP boats, aluminium, carbon, wood. So to make sure that whatever your dream and your project, you will find with us the boat. But in fact, the boat is one thing, but it's not the only thing. It's that, of course, it's a key part, but it's also, if you want to make such a trip, there are plenty of reasons not to do it. You know, your aging parents, finance, children, work, whatever. So at one point, you need some courage, and our job is to help you to go through all these obstacles. And that's why we have developed not only the boating part, but also all the services. And our seminars is one part of this.
Exactly. So the webinars, we're actually going to hear from people who have experienced blue water sailing themselves and also gone on big expeditions around the world. We're hearing everything from safety to follow your dream to having as many experienced people on board as possible.
Yeah, exactly. Because what we have seen is that you need to get the confidence in the boat to be able to make that kind of type of trip, but also confidence in your ability to do so. And we want to give you opportunity to hear that normal people have done it, and perhaps it's possible for you also. Perhaps it's not for you, but at least to understand if it will correspond to your expectations. So what we want is that to go behind the kind of postcard of that type of trip, to get some real facts and share with people who have done it.
Yeah, wonderful. It's an absolutely wonderful resource. We're going to say goodbye to you now, Xavier. We're going to catch up with you later in the show. We're going to head down into the cockpit and see our presenters. Now it's time to welcome on board Pete Goss, British sailor, adventurer and author. Pete, you will be actually the first in the series, the webinars series. You kick off on the 23rd of September. Now, you are certainly no stranger to adventure, are you, Pete? You actually have a very interesting history. You are a former Royal Marine, a NASA tester. You've completed 6 transatlantic and 2 round-the-world races. You've undertaken polar explorations and kayaking, just to name a few. But you're perhaps best known for your heroic efforts in horrendous conditions of a fellow competitor in the 96-97 Vendée Globe. This was an experience that obviously gave you plenty of credibility and safety, but your discussion for the webinars is under the theme Dare to Dream. Why is that?
Well, it's Dare to Dream really is, I'm just trying to encourage people to go for it, I think. And, unfulfilled dreams very quickly turn to regret. So I think what I'm trying to do is, through my wife and I went off and did our 2.5-year dream, is just share some of the thoughts and reflections from that. And very much, this is something that you can do, you're not on your own. I mean, that's why I'm doing the webinar, is it's a very big community out there, the cruising community, and I wish there was a webinar when we set off. And so it's a way for me to give back and share things that we'd learned. But and there's a whole series of them, and my one is about getting up and going for it. And don't be overwhelmed by it. This is something. Think about your dream, get the right boat for your dream, start with baby steps. Everyone starts at different levels, so work out your level and then have a training program to build yourself up. So it's not insurmountable at all. There's loads of people out there to help, and it's something that you can grow into rather than be overwhelmed by.
Tell us about your experience. So you set off with your wife Tracy, that's correct?
Yeah, we did. Well, one of the things is timing. So, the kids left home, which is wonderful, and very sad to see them go, but you're completely liberated. And we had this dream, and it was quite interesting for us. There was a point where we sat down, we had a glass of wine and thought, we actually have to consciously give ourselves permission to go. And that kind of liberated all sorts of things, started to fall into themselves. And that's kind of, it sounds silly, but it's quite a big thing. You've worked hard all your life, you've done all of these things, you've brought the kids up, and suddenly it's your time. And it is your time. I mean, for us, we were like teenagers again. It was absolutely wonderful. And Tracy had not really sailed before. She'd done 2 night sails. So then you're into, training up Tracy, bringing her along, making sure that she was happy and playing to our strengths. Because it's a job, you're going to go off and take this boat across the Atlantic. But one of the things I would like to share now is we were setting off around the world. Family circumstances meant that after 2.5 years we had to curtail the trip and come back. And if we hadn't gone when we went, that dream would have just been a big regret. So I really would say grab the opportunity and go for it. And that kind of comes out with COVID, doesn't it? I think it's made a lot of people reflect about what's important. And it's a way of life. It's a wonderful thing to do. It's the most self-affirming thing we've ever done. And it's nice to help other people do it.
Now, you don't actually bid farewell to your family for 2.5 years, and in fact, it was quite important for you to get them involved to some extent in the trip, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that's the other side of the coin I really want to touch on. I mean, we talk about the technical side and the boats and all the rest of it, but there's a very big emotional part to it, and a big part of that is unravelling your life to go and leave, and that took us much more than we had anticipated. I mean, we had to sell the house, you've got to get rid of your phones, your car, all of these things, and then have empathy for your family and your friends. And you don't want them to, a lot of them don't understand it for a start, so you have to take them sailing, give them appropriate books, get them involved, and such that they participate in the journey. And they can really enjoy it with modern technology and things. So, my daughter, she kind of got it, but it wasn't until she joined us in the Bahamas that it was lovely. She took Tracy aside and said, Mum, I really understand why you did it. I'm really proud of you. And for her, she came back many times, and it was something that she could enjoy. And our wider friends, So I think you have to be really empathetic with people around you.
And you even managed to keep your 90-year-old mother connected as well, I believe?
Yeah, definitely. So we had a whole load of people of a much older generation, so it was very important to send postcards, but then you can get someone of the younger generation to print off the blog and post it to them, and so they get that weekly update, and you can phone now. And I think that's one of the things that we found is you set off and you just look at the pinnacle, which for Tracy was crossing an ocean. It's a really big deal, but in truth, of the 2.5 years, that only represented 2.5 weeks. And it was a diminishing 10 days from the middle either way. So you're never more than 10 days away from family and friends. And with modern communications, if there's an issue, you jump on a plane, you're home within 12 hours, certainly within the Atlantic. So I guess I'm trying to say that have your dream, have the courage to go for it. But when you're looking over that abyss and a big gulp, it doesn't need to be an abyss, Get your knowledge, get your training, get your support networks around you. Start slowly, you're not going straight into the Atlantic. You might sail for a year, cruise for a year around the Mediterranean. And knowledge dispels fear. And so it's something that leads you along rather than being this overwhelming. You should enjoy it. It's so much fun. And that's something a lot of people don't talk about. It's a way of life. We met more lifelong friends in those 2.5 years than we did in the previous 10. Really lifelong friends, wonderful people. And it's a very social thing, sailing. There's this community which, you don't have to sign up. You go and drop your anchor in a harbour and everybody in that bay is a friend. And if you're in trouble, they'll help you.
So the main topics that you'll be touching on in your webinar?
Well, I don't have anything specific, but just talking about the emotional side and allowing yourself to go. And I guess a number of things that you can put in place which are enablers. And get the right boat, get your training, play to your strengths, cover the weaknesses, do a little bit of training, and then get out there and enjoy it. And don't use others as a measure. This is the one time in your life where it's totally your own. You don't have to conform to anything, and if you use others to measure yourself, then you'll never live up to it. Just go your own way, lots of reviews, grow together, and enjoy it.
Fantastic. Looking forward to hearing more in your webinar. Shall we take a seat with everybody and Nikki and LoIc?
Yeah, definitely.
Actually are happy to talk to other people who have some questions. It's not just the webinar. You actually like to continue that kind of
I do,
information.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I mean, with the webinar, it's I talk, but then afterwards there's quite a detailed question and answer session. Well, I wish I'd had it. And that's why I do it. I love it, and it's putting back into the community. So I leave my email. Anybody can call me up. They can email, and I'm here to help facilitate. Because boats are always ready but never prepared, and so there does come a point when you just have to go, and I think it helps to have people around you to untie that rope and go, and then it's just a natural progression from there.
Yeah. Now there was a lot of training, obviously, for you. You'd been in the industry for a long time. Not so much your wife. Like your speciality is safety and knowledge. Is that normal that one person has all the training? And I mean, I would have been absolutely terrified getting on a boat, not knowing anything. But you learn along the way, I guess, and that's also really important, isn't it?
Yes, it is very important. You don't have to know everything on day one. Of course, there is a minimum of knowledge to have before you depart. But as you progress, you learn more things. You have developed skills before, and you keep developing them. And as Pete mentioned, you start with a small step, like you leave Europe, and you start with a 100, 200, 300 miles crossing, and then you go for 500 or 600. And you get to Canary Island. And then you've learned a lot by that time. And you've had time to prepare yourself, build, take all the pieces you needed, to be ready. And then you go for 2 weeks passage. And then on the other side, you also have facilities where you can stay, you can get help. And so it's a step-by-step process.
Yeah, I can only second that, actually. Being young in my career, I started doing this when I was 18. And the same thing, dare to dream, dare to think, maybe I can do this when other people can't. And as you say, actually, someone gave me some advice once. They said, right at the beginning of my career, they said, yeah, you don't have all the skills, but skills doesn't get you far, but attitude does. And attitude keeps you safe.
Yeah, and so these are the topics that we can expect you to cover in Dare to Dream. Obviously, you're first up on the 23rd of September, so we're very excited to hear about that.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Actually, you know what? I think this is a perfect time to have... It's a little bit late. We normally do this a little bit earlier in France, but I think this is a perfect time to have what we say in France, which is a bit of an apéro. We are going to invite, around the table, we're going to invite our barman, Guillaume. Now, I believe you've prepared something for us this evening.
Yes, I have. Blue
Wow.
Evasion.
Look at that. That's beautiful. Thank you. And a blue straw as well. Perfect.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Cheers. Cheers.
Yeah.
All right. Well, look, LoIc, I think we're going to move on to you. You also have a very interesting background. So you spent many years sailing as a child with your family, but then you actually took to the skies and you became a pilot flying Airbus aircraft. You also served as captain and instructor for 20 years, but you never gave up your passion for sailing. And you actually took your wife and 3 children, again, blows my mind, 3 children, blue water sailing for 2.5 years to 3 years. What was that experience like?
Well, it was a great experience. It was a dream that we had with my wife for many, many years. And we were very busy, both of us, with our professional career. But at some stage, my wife told me, look, this dream, it's time. It's time.
And so she encouraged you.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And yes, we realized that we had a short window, like about 3 years, where the kids had the perfect age, because we had 3 kids.
How old were the children?
When we left, they were 4, 7, and 12.
Wow.
And it was a perfect timing for them to get out of school and get some, real life experience around the world.
Wonderful. And your speciality is around safety, experience. Obviously, your history and your career comes into that. How do you apply that to blue water sailing?
Yes. Most of the things I've learned in my career also apply sailing, safety being, of course, the first thing. And yes, I've realized that most of the techniques that we use to make a flight safe can also be used to make boating safe.
Okay.
And basically, I've applied that to boating, and it worked very, very well. And when we came back, actually, I was actually invited by Outremer to share this, not only knowledge, but how I had implemented all this maintenance and care for the boat along the trip.
Well, knowledge is power, isn't it? I think that is, it's got to be about confidence, and confidence comes from knowledge and experience. In your webinars, do you kind of take people through that process, or what can we expect to see from you?
Yes, in the webinar, we have different topics, of course, but we invite people to think about, their plan, what they want to do with their boat, what type of trip they want to take, and we want them to have a fair assessment of their abilities. Because we have people coming from different backgrounds. Some are, technically competent, some are less. And at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. What matters is when you start, you have at least the minimum level that is required, as we said before, to go at least the first step and keep learning.
Yeah, because obviously that can be a barrier to dreaming and fulfilling your dream, obviously, what Pete was talking about. Should people be scared and not so apprehensive? Is it important just to understand that it is a process and there are steps that you need to take, and once those steps are completed, then you're off on a safe journey?
Well, people need to understand what they embark on. It must not be taken lightly, but at the same time, there is no need to worry too much about it. It's all a matter of being prepared. And if you are prepared, and if, of course, you're cautious, there is, no reason to have problems.
Well, look, safety obviously is important because you are in the middle of nowhere, aren't you? You're literally in the middle of nowhere. You have support of other sailors, but essentially,
yes,
you need to know what you're doing.
Obviously, the further you progress along the trip, the more, remote places you'll find, and you have, of course, lack of technical support if something happens. So then you need, of course, to have a certain level of knowledge to have autonomy, because the autonomy is the key to freedom when sailing. And that's why it's so important to learn all the stuff that one day you might need when you sail to remote places alone.
What about boats like Outremer? In terms of like technology, is there a lot of parts? Is there a lot of things to know? Is it a bit easier? Does everything just come together like
Well, an Outremer is a boat that has been designed and built for blue water cruising. So I would say that out of the box, it's almost ready to go.
Okay.
And once you're acquainted to your boat and the system, you have the knowledge to know how the system works, how to do the basic, maintenance on them to keep them in a good condition. You're pretty safe to go.
Because your boat is actually right next door to us this evening, isn't it?
Yes.
Absolutely beautiful boat.
Thank you.
Yeah, and you'll be sailing, you're going to spend a few days on the Riviera and then you're going to take off?
Exactly. Very soon we're going to depart for another round the world trip, and we'll join the Glimo. And yes, it's again another 3 years around the world. This time, small difference, we go only with 2 kids because
okay.
Victor, the older one, is a bit too old now and started, university.
And were your children as aware of all the technical issues as you were? Is this something that needs to be spread across the board, or were they relying on you for all your technical knowledge?
Well, of course, I was. I was in charge of the boat technical condition and technical management, but I was helped a lot by everyone on board, up to their level of abilities. Mm-hmm. Exactly, and actually, that's something I enjoyed. Transmitting to the kids the fact that we have a boat. It's at the same time it's our home. It's also our mean of transportation. It's also a boat gives you, also some fun. It carries all the toys that we need, and it's very important to take care of the boat.
I actually, what I'm eventually talking about is sort of the sharing of responsibility. From what I've experienced teaching people, when you do share the responsibility, they feel so empowered and they feel, it's such a rewarding thing to be able to fix the boat and maintain the boat themselves. Did you find that with your kids? Did they enjoy it?
Oh, yes, of course. Of course, we had, many examples where, we shared, the maintenance of the boat, and
and even to the point that sometimes, they even help me fixing stuff, because, some system in the boat are not always very easy to access. And sometimes having a very small hand, very small finger helps, and that's something they quite enjoyed, and they felt actually very proud of being able to do something that I was maybe not that much able to do. Yeah.
Because I was going to say, there is a lot to learn, but it's not a burden, it's a joy. Everybody grows with the boat, and you are living in a machine, and you become to love your boat, you rely on your boat, and watching people grow is one of the joys that comes with doing one of these journeys. Everything's new, every day is different, isn't it?
Exactly.
And, fantastic with kids.
And it's very rewarding, actually. When you, especially coming back, after having sailed all around the world, and your boat is in a perfect condition, almost like new, it's something to be proud of.
Yeah.
That sense of achievement, arriving ashore, is just, you can't repeat it anywhere else.
Yep.
And it's yours.
And it's yours as well.
You haven't paid someone to do it. It hasn't been given to you. It's not, popped out of a brochure. You've actually done it. And that first beer and steak is amazing, isn't it? You know, and you don't get that in life much now. It's
you
a
learn
fantastic
to appreciate
thing.
the little things. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, but also that it's something that's yours. Everybody on the boat. I always think, as a skipper, you should set it up such that as everybody walks away from the boat, they should just look back and think, do you know, if I wasn't on that boat, it would have never got round the world. And that comes back to this team ethos and growing together and learning. And it's a wonderful thing. I'm very envious of your kids.
Yeah. And how old are the kids now?
Well, now they are 9 and 12.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And ready to go.
Oh, I bet. Nikki, we're going to move on to you. A little brief history about yourself. You are a British-born professional skipper, or sailor woman, as you like to be called. You're also an author and a motivational speaker. What an incredible experience you've had. You say you started at 18, but at 25 years old, you became the youngest ever clipper round the world skipper. You brought Visit Seattle home in second place. In 2017-18, you've raced the Caribbean 600, Fastnet, race to Alaska, Middle Sea race, and you were a guest skipper on Maiden. Interestingly, you also joined YouTubers Le Vagabond to sail Greta Thunberg all the way across the Atlantic. Now, the question that you're going to aim to answer in your webinar is, can there be more than one skipper on board? Now, you're really challenging some traditional thought processes here. Where does that come from?
Yeah, I mean, as you read my career, I wouldn't say that my career is one that you could have predicted when I was 16, 17 years old, and isn't the standard track necessarily for someone to go into sailing. I stepped up. I think partly because I am a woman, I had a lot of opportunities to step up quite fast into the role of skipper, and then I embraced opportunities that stood in front of me for leadership. And I think that as you look at those experiences, there are some themes, one of which being all encompass very interesting groups of people. The Clipper race is a race for people who've never sailed before. I think on my team of 60 people, I had 16, 17 nationalities, 3 generations in terms of age. So you're learning how to lead and work within a team of lots of people with lots of talent. And I think both of the guys have mentioned the fact that it is really important to find strengths and to find where people feel empowered, feel like they can step up. And at the end of the day, if you're sailing around the world, in my case, I was racing for 1 year. I mean, for LoIc, he's sailing for 2-3 years. You need to play the long game. You cannot be in charge of everything all the time. For one, it's unsafe. I was telling the guys earlier, LoIc is a pilot. Can you imagine getting onto a plane to cross the Atlantic, and the co-pilot coming on the intercom and, hello everyone, have a nice flight, make yourself comfortable. And can you imagine if they didn't know how to fly? You need to share the leadership and share the role. And so it's a safety issue, but I think also it's about a fun environment. There's a huge pressure on someone to be in charge on their own for that amount of time, and everyone else is probably going to have a lot more fun if they feel like they have their contribution, and as Pete said, they can walk away feeling like they were a valued member of the team. So I'm challenging some maybe traditional concepts of this triangular shaped hierarchy on a boat, and maybe saying perhaps it should be more rectangular, lots of channels of chains of command, lots of different hats for different people, because often things happen simultaneously and there are several leaders at once.
Yeah. Obviously, again, when we're talking about when you're alone and it's either yourself and your partner or yourself and your children, I can imagine it feels much more empowering knowing that if anything happened to yourself, that they can at least get themselves to safety, or if there was an accident. I mean, that's what it's all about essentially, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, we're not in this, we're sailing in the 21st century. Things have changed. This is not like, I joke, it's not, we don't have Popeye at the back with his captain hat on, eating spinach and shouting orders, pointing his finger. We're looking for a team dynamic, and but saying that, I think there's a reason that hierarchy used to exist, and it's because you are in a very intense environment where decisions have to be made very, very quickly. So I think that there's two sides to the coin, and what I've experienced from sailing from, as I said, the Clipper race to, joining a boat, joining La Vagabond with two people who own the boat, a baby, there's a very big, broad spectrum of different characters and leadership scenarios, is how do you make those collaborative decisions or share the leadership role? How do you do that in maybe more high pressure scenarios, and what scenarios is that not appropriate? So just giving you some tools for your toolbox and suggesting some other ways of doing things. So I mean, I'd be interested actually. I mean, you guys both have sailed around the world with your partners. I mean, that must be an intense experience. I'd love to know how you guys did it.
Well, we always laugh. I'm the captain, but Tracy's the admiral. But you're right. I mean, I think you can run a boat on a consensus generally. We sat down. One thing we had was a big disparity in knowledge. And so naturally I would have to take decisions because Tracy just didn't know. But I've always felt as a skipper what your role is to, and collectively everybody in the boat is involved in this, is to do yourself out of a job, such that should you fall over the side, there should be no day-to-day effect to the performance of the vessel. So you are coaching, delegating, bringing people on. And, we found that natural process happened as we sailed. But we did, there was two of us, so there's a big workload. So what we used to do was share the workload to our strengths and the things we enjoy. Tracy's not interested in the engine at all. I mean, I would show it to her.
Sure, I mean, there are
but
things
it was
that
just
people
not her
want
thing,
to go.
so there's no reason for her to, but she could start it, and if I went over the side, she could make it do what we wanted of it. So I think it's something that you sort of develop in together, really. But one thing we did have was a red card system. So if either of us just felt this doesn't feel right, you could pull the red card out. We didn't discuss it, we went with it. And sometimes it was just intuition. And that was really good, because then, everyone felt the ability to just say stop. You never went beyond your comfort zone. And the funny thing is, looking back afterwards, is you realize often that intuition was fantastic. We would talk about it afterwards, but we both had the ability just to put the brakes on, draw breath. Okay, we're ready to start again.
Yeah, that's interesting, the intuition, because obviously the knowledge is very important, but at some point that intuition's got to kick in, isn't it?
Yeah, the gut feeling. And actually tools like that, if you can learn them, like in situations like our webinars or talking to other friends in the community, and you can take them with you from day one, you can implement good habits, and it's so much harder to undo habits than it is to make them. So start off in the right foot, and then it should hopefully set you up for success.
Yeah, I agree. It's completely true. And that's when you are mentioning the captainship, on board. It's important that everything is set, nicely but correctly.
Yeah.
From day one, start with good routines, good habits, and that's not only for sailing, but I was mentioning for maintenance as well. Don't leave anything behind.
Yeah.
Don't overlook. Just be disciplined, basically. But that's a very rewarding thing. Having discipline on board. And by saying discipline, I don't mean being super strict, but share with everyone what must be done and when it must be done.
Yeah, it's this paradox that's quite interesting, I think, about how very strict and clear structure and guidelines and rules often is an environment in which we feel most free and most liberated to relax, weirdly.
And obviously sailing is a very emotive pastime, isn't it? It's something, you're on a boat, you're in touch with nature, you're there with your loved ones. Challenging those perhaps roles of people within your own family, I can imagine could be challenging for some people.
Yes, I think this is why this subject does need to be spoken about sensitively in an environment like this, where we're open to respecting each other and listening to them. Because I do think, it is hard if you have a very clear dynamic in your relationship or with your friends, where someone is often in charge of one thing and someone isn't normally in charge. I'm a skipper, and I know it feels great. I mean, it feels great for my ego to sort of come into the dock holding the wheel and everyone say, well done you, and actually it's a team effort. And it can be quite hard to step down, but until you step down and leave the vacancy of leadership, there is no room for anyone else to step in. And I think if you want to create a collaborative environment, it's a challenge. It's a challenge of patience, and it's a challenge of your own personal pride and emotions. But I think ultimately it creates an incredible atmosphere.
And also having that other person on boat that you also feel is pulling their weight, I imagine. That must be also helpful, where you don't feel like you're doing everything yourself.
I absolutely agree. Egos get left on the jetty, but I think the key to most things in life is honest communication, kind. Always be kind to each other, but review as you go, because if you go onto a boat as it starts, there will be a natural hierarchy. Parachute onto that boat in 6 months and it will be unnatural, because people have grown at differing rates, and that's when you need to have an honest review, and I'd like to give this up, but I'd like to take a bit more of that. And leadership tends to, on a good team, I think, is a flat team, and it jumps around against the problem and the skill set. So it's a rigging issue. You're the rigger, right? You're in charge, and everyone defers to you. So it's quite a fluid thing on a good team. Every individual is a leader in their own right.
And the good thing about these webinars is you all have this experience. You're all professionals. You will be giving your first-hand experience to people who are have either been blue water sailing or are looking to go blue water sailing. In terms of preparation, I'm getting the feeling that is obviously the most important thing to this kind of adventure. How many years would you put on it? Is there a certain minimum amount of time that you should allow yourself before you go and embark on this kind of adventure?
Well, it all depends on your starting point, I would say. Obviously, you need some basic knowledge in sailing, in boat handling, in crew management as well. And you can't learn that in 1 week.
Sure.
So one needs to be prepared to a certain level, and there is a minimum. You must be able to handle your boat correctly, avoid any mistakes that would be big trouble very quickly, and that's the basic minimum. And then, of course, learn. The more you know, the better. But if you wait until you know everything before going, you will never go neither. So there is a fine, balance to actually to get to, and comes a point, as Pete said, dare to dream and dare to go as well.
I think there's two sides to your question. One is, how long does it take? to go, but how long does it take to leave? Because what you're doing is blue water sailing, is you're choosing a completely different way of life. So not only are you learning that new way of life, but you're also trying to wind down the old life. And really, we had to sell our house, you change your career, you're setting up family, you're, parking up the car, insurance, telephones. Your society ties you down like Gulliver's Travels, and it really amazed us how long it took to unpick each one of those to be able to go. And we found there was it was just a natural process. You decide to go, and then it'll just happen in its own volition. I think what a lot of people do is they think, oh my God, I've got to be able to sail across the Pacific. And so they never go because they never get ready. But actually, I live in Plymouth. I would start from Plymouth to Foy, which is 30 miles to Falmouth, across the Channel. And like you say, you get to the Canaries, then you go across the Atlantic, and then you go through the Panama. And suddenly, just by doing the journey itself has taught you and prepared you to go on the Pacific. So boats are always ready, but never prepared. So just allow yourself to go.
Yeah, I think don't let perfection get in the way of doing it at all,
yeah,
right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, with the webinars and with this sort of a resource and books and that sort of thing, something I often tell my students is I still relearn things, even now. So you can feel ready, you can go, you can do your 2 or 3 trips, and you can always look at the webinars again or look at the books again and you'll look at them and learn different things from the experience you've had. So it's a continual process. You are always, as you say, in some ways preparing.
And don't cry over the mistakes. Celebrate in the lessons. A lot of people beat themselves up. And actually, out of every mistake comes that wonderful thing called a lesson, which you can then reuse and will sustain you for the rest of the trip. And I think the other thing is, when you go, it is your trip. So don't gauge or measure yourself against other people, because you'll never live up to that. Go at your own pace, slow it down, enjoy it, find what's right for you, because this is the one chance you have to really live your life as you want to live it.
Absolutely. Nikki, do you have any brief advice for people who are watching at the moment? Obviously, we're going to learn more in your webinar, but if you had to sum it up, would you have any advice?
I mean, I honestly, Pete just sort of summed up everything in my opinion. I think we've lived this last 2 years really facing the realities of risk management and making decisions and deciding what is too risky for us and what is not too risky for us. And I think work out how you stand with regards to blue water sailing. And once you've worked that out, go for it. Before telling everyone else, commit to it with whoever you want to do it with, because at the end of the day, what's right for you isn't right for everyone else. And as long as you feel good about it, I don't think you will regret it. So and enjoy the webinars and enjoy learning.
LoIc, any particular advice?
Yeah, I think everything has been said about it and very well summarized. Yeah, go for it, and
go for
it.
That's the thing, isn't it? Just go for it. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, everybody. We all look forward to watching the webinars. As we said, they kick off with you, Pete, on the 23rd of September, Dare to Dream. And then obviously we've been given a bit of an insight into what everyone's going to be talking about, but obviously you're going to be going into a lot more detail. And there will also be that opportunity for people to relay some questions to you and have that one-on-one, which I think is a very unique experience for people, and it's really encouraging and exciting. So I think on that note, we're going to welcome Xavier back on board. Welcome back, Xavier.
Thanks, Xavier.
Hi, everybody.
Hello. Now, we've just heard a preview of obviously the webinar series that are going to come up with lots of nice, interesting information. It's going to be an incredible resource for viewers who have either experienced blue water sailing or are thinking about blue water sailing. Great that obviously Pete and LoIc have taken part before. You know what's to come.
Yeah, that's great. I think our purpose is really to help people to go for it, as you say, and it's a personal trip also. It's a kind of human adventure. As you say, there are very different way of doing it, but it's very important that at one point, if you feel like doing it, you could. And we are here to provide all different type of tools which can enable you to make it happen.
Yeah, it's a great resource for everybody, that's for sure. On that note, we also have an exciting announcement, don't we, Xavier? I believe you are about to make an announcement of a winner of the contest.
Before we, I would like also to speak about the rally.
Yeah, okay. Well, let's talk about... Okay, so this is actually like a prelude because at the end of October or in end of September, I believe, there is an exciting announcement. There is an exciting event taking place. So we will start with that. Tell us more a little bit about that.
Yeah, because in fact, what we see with the seminar and all the projects is that there are very different ways to doing it. And we have tried to put in place another way of doing it. And we have organized a rally, so open to both from all the shipyards of Grand Large Yachting. And so far we have 33 boats which register from every brand, so that's really great. And it's another way of doing it. You will be a group, you will create some connection, some link, you will share some incredible moments.
So people can actually watch this rally. It's called the Odyssey, is that correct?
It's called the Grand Large Yachting World Odyssey 500. Mm-hmm. So it's to celebrate the 500th anniversary of Magellan circumnavigation.
Wonderful.
And so we thought it was a nice way to celebrate. And so it's something for us. It's the first time we organize it. So it's type of a challenge with very different boats. And two people can go through Panama, go south around South America. But it will be a way for people who perhaps have some hesitation to try it.
Yeah, because they can watch it on all the different brands,
exactly,
social media or on their websites. They can really...
So it's a way you will discover firsthand. You can see a bit before people who are blazing the trail. So it's, I think it will be pretty exciting, and we are very eager to follow that.
Absolutely. So that's called the Grand Large Yachting World Odyssey 500. And this is a 3-year round-the-world global rally, and that's in honour of the 500th anniversary of Magellan.
Exactly. Oh, sorry, I'm not pronouncing well.
No, that's fine. So we also...
thank
here's
you.
your cocktail.
Yeah, I like this type of life. Huh?
I know, right? We could get used to this.
Yeah,
if all interviews
because
could be like this.
We speak a lot of technical things, but it's also very personal. It's sharing things together. It's not, of course, it's a boat, but it's much more than a boat. It's also exploring the world, meeting people, and so having some nice cocktails. So I like it, and we are lucky. LoІc will be participating to this trip as well.
That's
so
right. You're going to be taking part in the Odyssey, aren't you?
Yes, exactly. So it's coming soon, and yes, so we are part of a group of 33 boats. Yeah, we're going to throw the ball lines.
Your children on as well. This
yes,
is what you were talking about before. Yes. How exciting! So we can watch you on the adventure as well.
Yes, yeah. It will be not live, but you'll be able to see the progress of all the boats. Mm-hmm. I think on the website of the Grand Large.
Yes, it will be great on the media, social media. We will relay that, so that's it will be nice.
Yeah, we have all that information. Now, in saying that, we also you've run a competition on social media, Instagram and Facebook, for somebody to actually experience this particular, well, not the actual race, but some of the excitement surrounding the race. Can you tell us more about that?
In fact, we wanted to offer the opportunity to somebody through this contest to get the flavor of the rally. It's not participating totally, but it's at least participating to the Sevilla stop, and to participate to the party with all the participants, and perhaps share with us the impression and the atmosphere.
So the prize is a trip to Sevilla.
Exactly.
To take part in that, one of those stops in...
So it's 3 days, 2 weeks, and at the end of October when the rally will be there. So I think it will be very exciting.
Very exciting. Would you like to announce the winner then?
Yes, we have a winner.
Yes.
So it's Magali Uve who has participated on Instagram, and so
she had to answer a question, didn't she? So
in fact, she had to explain what she was dreaming of doing in this rally, and she said, "I dream of sailing to the Palos Island on an Outremer 51." So we had a kind of draw, and so that's Magali who will come and share with us this. I hope, incredible moment.
Yeah, congratulations, Magali. What a wonderful prize. I think we can wrap this up. This has been an absolutely incredible evening. hearing all of your stories. Can't wait to tune in and hear more and get all of that wonderful experience and knowledge that you can share with everybody who is keen on blue water sailing. Obviously, there is a lot to learn, a lot to know for a wonderful adventure. Thank you, Xavier, Pete, Nikki and LoIc, and enjoy the Cannes Yachting Festival. Don't forget that you can actually, I better mention, Xavier, that to sign up to the webinars, you can link to the register in the description on this video. So there'll be information on how to actually sign up so we can make sure that everybody is watching the webinars. And thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you very much to all of you. That was
Thank
really
you.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank you. Cheers.